So we are in the midst of a global reinvention revolution. Reinvention, the word, appears many times, many times in newspapers, magazines and media today. I'm a real media junkie, and I say to anyone in the room who writes for business, the more you read newspapers and business and reports, the better your language gets and your jargon gets, so that you can write for that market. So when I was asked the other day, I write for a variety of clients, and one came in and said, we've got this client who wants things about fashion written and they want 2 blogs a week and it's so many thousand words. And I just said, that's not me. That's not me. I'm not interested enough to do that one. But when he said 2,000 words on travel was the next one that came through, I said, oh yeah, I can do that. I'd like that. So one of the things with reinvention, big important thing, is that you've got to be prepared to say no. Say yes to opportunities, but also be prepared to say no. Because sometimes the knitting is so far, it's not knitting, it's crochet. It's not, stick to the knitting. We can vary a little bit. So in jewellery, it might be, can you make this? Well, it's so far out of what we do, will it be worthwhile? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So being clear on what you want to do, and that aligns with your values and your bigger picture. There's never a perfect time to reinvent yourself or your business. The drivers for reinvention, these are interesting. They include the market need. So what actually does the market need at the moment? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, were there were bloggers? No. LinkedIn wasn't even around, around in a small version 10 years ago. Website designers, graphic designers, all sorts of different things. Printing's always been around. Mortgages have been around in some form. Bookkeeping's been around. It is online, yes. So we reinvent what we do, and people have still been making mistakes with minerals and mining and all sorts of their manufacturing. So the drivers for reinvention include the request from your customers, a change in the economy or the marketplace. So the mining is one that has shrunk in Australia, so there's a lot of people out of work, but there's a reinvention of how opportunities come about. Major change in personal circumstances, that could be retrenchment, it could be divorce, it might be a death in the family, relocation, it could be a whole stack of things that have affected the family unit or your immediate network. A derailed career, you might have been caught up in something that you may or may not have been responsible for, but it's where you thought you were going and where you are now are two different things. Could be sickness and frustration with wearing a corporate straitjacket and or an ageing workforce. And I can tell you that once you hit 60, those of you who are nowhere near it yet, I appreciate that seems like miles away, but the closer you get, you go, do I want to be doing this at 70? Because for many of us, the baby boomers in the room, we were retiring at 55, and that seems so long ago, or so long away, but now it's not. More than 26% of the Australian population are baby boomers aged 60 plus. So that is the growth market now. Trading a weekly salary for the sometimes uncertain cash flow of being self-employed can be very scary. And often when you read books about starting up a small business, they'll say, well, as long as you've got 2 years' salary put away, you'll be okay. Well, most small businesses don't start with that. They start with a bit of money or a credit card. That's it, and they get going. And they just chase their tail a lot. And some go on to build fantastic businesses. Some do all sorts of different things. But I don't believe there's any really, this is the only road that you go for a successful business. I think it's sort of like up and down and all over the shop. People underestimate the effort and energy it takes to reinvent you and the resistance they may encounter from friends and family. So here's a quote from the Rolling Stones. I mentioned this last night, the Stones Guide to Business. And I've never seen the Stones in person. Has anyone in the room seen the Stones in person? I'd imagine they would just be brilliant. You know, the energy that I've seen of the live concerts, and Mick Jagger prancing around the room. He's a tiny little guy. But they play golf everywhere they go now. Like they're a relatively healthy band for the international tours that they do. So they were asking, the Rolling Stones aren't just a band, they're the most dynamic corporation in the world. And they talked about all these different things, choosing the right name, knowing what the market wants from you, beg, borrowing or stealing to get started, cut the anchor before it drags you down. So being, if something's not working, it's not working. Never stop it reinventing. And I'll just read this bit. It says, the Stones have gone through at least 5 stylistic iterations: cover band, 60s pop, 60s acid, 70s groove, 80s new wave. At some point, they lost that elasticity and ability to reinvent. They got old. But the fact they did it so well for so long explains their inexhaustible relevance. The Stones have lived and died and been reborn again and again. And reinvention is like a rebirth. It means that for many different generations of adults, the sound of high school was the Rolling Stones. Though the Beatles probably surpassed the Stones in hits, they don't come close in reinvention. The Beatles reinvented themselves once, maybe twice. The Stones have reinvented themselves so many times they might as well be immortal. And you think about that, any musicians that have spanned those 3, 4, 5 decades. Quite an amazing thing.
I believe that Mick Jagger self-manages the Stones, and he manages all their finances.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They are self-managers.
Yeah.
Through Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
How unhealthy their lifestyle were.
What? Yes, was. And that point.
Amazing to think that they're still going.
Yeah. And you look at them now, the golf and exercise, that is and nutrition is quite a big part of that, whereas the sex, drugs, rock and roll of the 70s and 80s which is what we saw. Yeah, so it's very interesting to compare reinvention with musicians and to see that there's... I went to one concert in Tweed and I sat there, I got second row from the front and took a friend along. We were celebrating a new client, whatever, my assistant, and 2 rows from the front, and she said, she said, this guy, the first song came out, this guy came in, had baby face, no wrinkles, and I said, she said, what's wrong? And I said, that guy sold out, I said, he'd be older than me, and I said, he hasn't got a wrinkle on his face. I said, he's had plastic surgery. And she said, he's got a really good voice. I said, yeah, I know, but I'm really disappointed that he would do that. And she said, it was an American band, and I won't mention it because we're recording, but anyway, as it turned out, his story came about that he had been on American Idol, and just as you were saying that Mick Jagger arranges everything, this band tours the world and they bring in 2 originals, and this guy had been number 2 in American Idol, and he'd been YouTubed so many million times, and the guy at the back of this big band who puts together musicians, 10 musicians per tour, had said, come and try out with us, and they gave him a couple of shows. He was great. He's a young guy. He's in his 30s. He's got 3 kids. He showed us the kids. He's a great storyteller. It was a brilliant show, but they just replay the hits. And so it's one person behind it that creates. So I want you to think for a minute, what you do, can you show others how to do? Can you duplicate your business so you can sit back and be... Well, he's like a director-producer because he's in the business as well as working on the business. But can you show others how to do what you do? Certainly in jewellery you can, and we're talking about retail. But it can be cooking, it can be any sort of thing. How can you show people how to do things? Because the real currency that we're dealing in today is information. And if we can value our information, we can put a price on it, we can always give it away, but if we can put a price on our information, then we really start to get the key to reinvention and what we're really good at. So what I'd like you to do is just brainstorm with the person beside you. What's been the key point for you so far? I know we've covered a little bit of everything, but what's been the key point for you so far? And I know I've stretched your comfort zone, but what's that key point so far that might just take you to the next stage of your reinvention? Just a 60-second exercise. Just a quick bit of feedback. how was anyone able to go, okay, I know how I can reinvent myself, you've stretched my comfort zone, but I've got knowledge to share.
Well, mine was
Yeah,
interesting.
Patrick?
I just said to the boys, I said, to be truthful with you, I don't really want to reinvent myself. I don't think there's a need because I'm happy in my
Yep, doing what you're
sales
doing.
role
Yep.
printing. And they said, well, it may be reinventing of the way you do it.
Sure.
And I thought, oh, yeah. You know,
Maybe,
so, yes.
maybe.
So that was very helpful to me.
So we've got technology as an enabler today. So someone's going to win my 90-minute session one-on-one with me. Yeah, it's great if we're in the same city and we can sit opposite a cup of coffee. But I do them on Zoom, I do them on Skype, and I do them over the phone. Because what they want is you. They want your information. They want you to talk about their business or their situation, but you don't have to be sitting in the same room as them. I met with someone on Monday in Sydney and they're in Hawaii, and she was saying, oh, we really don't have this budget and to bring speakers in, but we've got this big event. I said, why don't you Skype me in? And she said, oh, I hadn't even thought of it. And I said, well, that will short circuit everything if you just, and we set it up and let's go in with a plan B. So we go in live to the conference, but I'll spend an hour the day before with you and we'll record one just in case this one fails. We got plan B. Robyn said that might break down, so we've got this one we prepared yesterday. And she went, wow, how much will you charge for that? I said, a lot less than it will to take me to Hawaii. I would have gone to Hawaii too. But that's the thing. You've got to think, okay, I can't be there, but technology is the enabler today. I'm on a board in Darwin. I go up there every 6 weeks for the meeting and to work up there. And one of the board members beams in from Timor. And we have problems from time to time on the link up because of that. So think in terms of how you can be in multiple places at once, because the days of all this flying around and it's very wearing on the body. It's not healthy, and you can achieve a lot with technology.
Yeah, you mentioned Zoom, which I've not heard of, which I just...
Oh, Zoom, yeah.
I'm downloading now.
Oh, good for you.
But,
Zoom, multitasking there, good. So Zoom is a great, what Zoom is a tool. So I did a Zoom session for a client recently where they had 10 staff. Why it's better than Skype, just to give you the comparison, reason why Zoom is better than Skype for a low-cost, multi-people platform is that Skype, you've all got to be connected via email addresses, whereas Zoom has allowed you to reinvent yourself with multiple people that you don't know, but you've got them. It's a platform that some universities use, but you've got the faces in front of you. They can all speak at once if they want, but you can mute them, or you're the person. They can see. So I did it in my lounge room. I had the laptop there. When I took questions, they were able to come through, and it was an hour's presentation. So it was on reinvention, and it was very user friendly. And once you've been on it, then you can become a Zoom person. Initially, it's free, and then you can go on different levels, whether you want to be able to do webinars or different things. But at the moment, I'm just doing it as a free one, and it's great. Very good tool. So Skype is good. Yeah, Skype's great. It depends on your coverage, your internet coverage. My coverage is great. Where I live in Kira, it was terrible at Tweed Heads. Terrible. TV was terrible. It just to conk out. Yeah, too many mountains. Yeah. So you've got to get the right one for the location that you live. Or I've had friends that have moved because they want a better location, a better bandwidth for where they are. Yeah. So anyone else, just before we move on, anyone else been stretched a bit and then thought, oh, okay, how part of the reinvention, have I given you some ideas around moving that? Videoing. Videoing is scary? Gary makes it easy for you. Oh, it's your comfort zone. Yeah. Okay, so the comfort zone, what you have to get with videoing or resources that you create, and let's just put a mentoring hat on for every one of you, whatever role you're in, that you could mentor other people. And it could be a salesperson coming through, it could be someone that, morning, name tags over there. Could be a person coming through who says, oh, great, I want to learn from you. So I say Gary's quality is fantastic and far better than other recordings that I've had in the past. But you forget that they're there, because if you worry about the camera, you're forgetting about your audience. And how I believe you engage as a good presenter is that you've all given me 3.5 hours of your life, I can never give it back. If I don't give you value, not only do I trash my name, I can never give you back that 3.5 hours. And I've sat through days of workshops and conferences where I've thought, what a waste. Why am I here? Why am I here? What did I get? What did I get? So part of the video is just fear, so forget that. And it's not meant to be a Steven Spielberg production, it's just meant to be you sharing information. Question is, how do you transition a second business or a second income stream? We're just on the first page there at the bottom. How do you transition but allow, it's a bit like studying, you've got to look at your week and say, how many hours can I commit to this secondary business at this point in time? Because you may be absolutely right, there isn't enough money in it right now, but there never will be unless you commit some time. So if you can jiggle your, and it might mean you've got to give up one of your weekdays, one of your weekends days, that may be it. If you can transition though and go, I will put, and that was the commitment that I made with the uni studies, I will commit this 2 days a week. That's it. Friday and Saturday are my days. That's it. And if I had to negotiate those, another day had to come out. I've got to do 2 days or I'm wasting my time, their time, and I just end up with a day. First up is the allocation of time. Second is then what budget is involved. Is there much budget? Because often when we're trying to get this one's not going as well as we like. That's why we start a second one. So, but we've got to either put resources or pay for information. I think this is really interesting. And I mentioned it last night that when I see speakers that I like or listen to tapes or CDs or whatever it is, or an online thing, I'll buy the book, I'll ring them up and say, can I have a one-on-one? And sometimes it's very expensive to do it, but I want them to answer my question. I want them to say, this is my situation, I live in this area, it's a regional community, such and such population, I don't want to do this, I do want to do that, how am I going to achieve that? And you get them to answer your question. That's it. So in terms of the secondary business, if we call it that, it's an allocation of time. It's an allocation of resource of some sort and knowledge. How do I skill up to do this? How do I skill up? So when I started LinkedIn, I wouldn't, what's the word when you don't like technophobic? I wouldn't quite go that far to label myself that, but technology's never really been my thing. I've got other skills, it's not really my thing. I don't need to know how it works, it's just show me what to do. And I started LinkedIn, and because I saw that I was actually co-presenting with a guy called Iggy Pintado, and he was doing online networking and I was doing face-to-face. It's going back a few years now. And he said to me, I looked for you on LinkedIn today, I couldn't find you. And I said, oh no, I'm not on that. And he said, why not? I said, oh no, look, I get too many emails. I said, I don't need, blah, 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 moan, excuse. He said, well, listen to my presentation today, it might change your mind. So he had this great graphic and he said, now, this is my normal traffic on my website. I'm a social media person. This is my normal traffic. And he said, I blog every couple of days. So he put a blog up that was called and blogs are just online articles. That's out of a WordPress or a couple of different areas. And he said, I put this one that was called, all I need to know about social media I learned from my grandmother, which was pretty much about be polite, don't trash people, and be respectful. And a coach, see, if someone's blogging every day, they need a lot of content, and they dry up pretty quickly unless they've got a lot of life experience or a lot of knowledge. So this guy was a coach in New York, and he emailed Iggy and said, would you mind if I sent that out to my network? I've got 100,000 or so in America. And Iggy said, sure, but will you just put my contact details, for more information or for more articles or more blogs, go to Iggy's website. So he showed this sort of graph of, normal traffic. And I think when it's 9 o'clock New York time, it's midnight, whatever, or thereabouts in Australia. And it went like normal, 1,850,785, normal. And as an author, I said, so how many book sales did you make out of that? And he said, more than I ever believed was possible, Robyn. I went, wow. So again, it's using technology as the enabler. And we've all, you've all heard the various campaigns, or social media, not social media, where Get Up and where you go in with an idea and crowdfunding. So that's another tool. But the time and the money, and how badly do you want it? How badly do you want it? Because the choice that we make, I was walking through briefly yesterday through the shops here. This would be very alluring if you worked in this complex. There's so much choice. And I thought, yeah, well, you're being disciplined. You've got a holiday down the track, so you'll never get to the Tribeca Film Festival in New York next year if you go into all these shops today. That was my, okay, so don't go in the shops today. With the money you would have spent, put that into your New York account, and that's what you're going to do. So it's a trade-off of what you want long-term and what you do short-term. Yeah. And then it's also who else is doing it and what experiences are they having. So before I buy any sort of programs, I don't just go to their website and I don't just look at their testimonials, because who's going to put a bad testimonial? No one's going to put a bad testimonial. A restaurant's not going to say, it was lousy food, I won't come back. No one's going to do that. I mean, TripAdvisor has changed that because people do give an opinion of, 4 out of 5, but they, depending who it is, they can close those down pretty quickly. But I want to talk to someone who's not on your website, who's actually doing it. Who's the last person that you signed up? Who's someone that's been with you 3 months? What results are they getting? So I believe, and it's why I've given you so many questions here, is I don't think people give enough questions, they don't ask enough questions when it comes to whatever product or service they're buying. So I pride myself on being able to answer questions. So here's a little tool that might work for you when you're trying to market something that's different and you're doing it online and people are coming to you. So for those of you who have visited my LinkedIn website, you'll see that I've got, just as my card, I'm a networking strategist, a student, I think I've got project manager for publishing non-fiction books, and I've got quite a bit of guff below. I've spent a lot of time on the profile. When someone contacts me about ghostwriting, and this is just one little arm, or networking presentations, and they do it out of hours, and I happen to be at home online, I am not a person to go, 6:10, I'm not responding to that, as if, it's Saturday morning, I'm not going to respond to that. I go, okay, they're looking online now. Between now and Monday morning at 9 o'clock, they could have been to 45 other websites, they could have written the book if they know what they're doing. So I will go back and say, thanks for that query. I happen to be home today and I'll be available on this number until 3 o'clock. And after 6 o'clock here, or tomorrow you can call me between this and this. Here's the number. More than happy to give you 15 minutes complimentary. And then after that, there's an hourly rate. Can I suggest that you write your questions down and we'll get through as many as possible in that 15 minutes. My belief is no one is ever going to become a client for networking or for, whether that's a presentation, large book purchase or large resources purchase, or for ghostwriting if I don't speak to them in the first place. So a lot of people just want your information and don't want to pay for it. But in that 15 minutes, what you're doing is building your credibility. Building your credibility. I don't necessarily tell a long story, but I'll say, oh, look, quick snapshot. You might have gone to my website. If you haven't, might have a look there. You might have a look at the LinkedIn profile. What specifically do you need to know? Now, if they go, oh, well, I want to write a book, and I go, okay, well, let's just, it's a big, I want to write and self-publish. Oh, okay, so that's a couple of hours conversation, but let's just give you one tool that you can use to get it started. Oh, okay, that'll do. Now, out of those, I'd say that 70% phone and the other 30% I don't worry about. Because if they can't make a phone call, we're never going to get to first base. We're never going to make a sale. If they're just shopping, fishing, that's okay too. But I'm happy to have the conversation. But I don't fluff in the 15 minutes. I want to give them 15 minutes to say, okay, I want them to be thinking on the other side of the end of the phone, okay, she knows what she's talking about. So, okay, I'll look at that. Now, when you're in the reinvention curve, you've got all this stuff saying engineer or printer or jeweler, and you're going into another quite different area, then what gives you that credibility? Well, it's your passion. This is what they buy over here with reinvention. It's passion. Don't reinvent yourself into something that you're not passionate about, because it won't work. It's just a job. But if it's something, ultimately we create a job, we create a career, but it's got to be something that we're really passionate about. So if you're able to tell me, okay, well, and there's so much development down here, my goodness. There's so many beautiful, magnificent houses. And if you can give me the history of that, okay, what's the number 6 Bluebell Street? What's the history on that house? And you go, okay, well, that's been on the market now. And you'd know that. So you'd almost tell in your role, you're almost telling a story. Apart from what you get online, what you get is what's online and what's public domain information. That's that. Anyone can get that. But what you give with your passion is what your research is, what you're passionate about, why you read what you read, so I'm a film and script movie buff. So part of my reinvention, and I said to a group the other day, long term my card will say scriptwriter, international scriptwriter. Woo! But and I'm passionate about film, so it's a long way from scriptwriter to films, long way. It's miles, I can tell you. But part of my reinvention was, if that's where I want to be, and there's no age limit, people who are 80 produce films and write scripts. I don't want to work with the actors, I just want to write the stories. If that's where I want to be, I have to hang out with scriptwriters. So I went to the National Screenwriters Conference in Victoria a couple of months ago. It's fantastic. Best investment of $2,000 I've ever made in my life. 3 days, really fun. I don't normally share an apartment thing, but I shared an apartment with 2 other people. It was $1,000 for the course, it was $1,000 for the travel, but I learnt more in those 3 days.
Did you know the people?
No, I didn't. No. But they'd run out of accommodation and the other stuff was miles away, and I thought it's either share or, a $50 taxi every day. That's ridiculous. Let's share. And the people were lovely, and I was meant to meet them. It was that sort of a thing. Beautiful apartment on this resort place. So that was an investment. But what I got, so here's a really quick snapshot of when you invest like that. One of the things they had at this conference was a networking event, which naturally I'm going to zip along to. And they were like, if ever you've done a Meet the Experts or Meet the Pros, there were tables of experts, but there was only one expert and it was a table of 4. But that expert, whether they were the person giving grants or doing whatever, that person gave the information and you asked questions. So I arrived down there bright and early and I recognised this woman who's a legend in the industry. She's in high 60s, early 70s, been around for many years, worked on everything you've ever known in Australia's ever produced. Amazing. And I sat down, and she said, oh, hi, and I sat down and I said, oh, look, I won't take your time because this is my first, I'm a newbie, I'm really just, baby steps for me. And she said, it's okay, what do you want to know? Tell me about what you're doing. And I said, oh, I've got this script, I'm writing it for a couple of Australian actresses, and Rose Byrne and Deborah Mailman. I don't know those people, but they're the lead females in this drama, and I'm very excited about it. She said, how long have you been doing it? I said, oh, 12 months. And she said, how long do you think it'll take? I said, well, I've got to juggle it beside the work that I do, and that's the income, and this isn't income generating, so another 12 months. And she said, how good are you at doing the one-page summary? I said, oh, yeah, good at that. I've got a sales background. Yeah, good at that. And she said, okay, well, she said, can I suggest you stop writing on that script and you do 6 one-page summaries of 6 stories, and then you do the 6 paragraphs. And you send, which they call a synopsis, send the paragraph and the one-page summary, get those out, get some feedback on that, and then go back to that script you're writing. Because some people can't do those one pages, and if you think you can do them, people will give you really quick feedback, and then they'll pay you to write the script. Thank you very much. I still, my body is absolutely reacting. I just went, oh my God, what smart woman, what an amazing advice. This was worth $2,000. I said, thank you so much. And I walked away. So that's the thing, we've got to invest, if we're looking at reinventing, where can I get the information to reinvent from people who are doing it? Where do they hang out? Where can I network? Yeah? So think for a minute, where can you go to network to get that information, to hang out with some of those people who are doing it? Or if what you want to do is so out there, no one's doing it yet, then you need a support network of people who don't think you're crazy. A support network of people who go, you're ahead of your time. You need to meet so-and-so because they're ahead of their time too. So you need, if you're out there, you need that network who'll just go, yeah, have you thought about this? Not the party poopers who just want to, no, that won't work, no, that won't work, but the ones who encourage you. They don't fund you, they encourage you. And if it is something that's already happening, you need to hang out with some of those people, because that 5 minutes with that woman is life-changing. And she will never know, I will tell her one day, what an impact she had, but that 5 minutes helps so much. So let's take a short break, and we might, for those that want to top up the coffees, we might do that now. So we'll take 10 minutes if that's okay. And just get you to think about really, who do you need to be hanging out with to get closer to your reinvention package, if we call it that?